Imagine you are walking down a street and you see someone collapse. Your first instinct is to help. You feel it immediately. A pull, an urgency, a certainty that someone needs to do something right now. But then you notice the other people around you. And they are all doing what you are doing. Standing, watching, waiting. And something strange happens inside you. The urgency begins to drain away. The pull weakens. Your feet stay where they are. The seconds stretch out, and nobody moves. This is not cowardice. It is not apathy. It is not a character flaw unique to you or to the people standing beside you. It is one of the most reliably documented phenomena in all of social psychology. A mechanism so powerful that it has cost human lives in situations where dozens of people were present and watching, and not one of them acted. It is called the Bystander Effect. And once you understand exactly why it happens, you will never look at a crowd the same way again. The story that put this phenomenon on the map is one of the most famous and most misunderstood in the history of psychology. In March 1964, a young woman named Kitty Genovese was attacked outside her apartment building in Queens, New York. She was attacked, escaped, was attacked again, and was killed over the course of approximately 35 minutes. The next day, the New York Times published a story claiming that 38 neighbors had witnessed the attack, and not one of them had called the police. The story ignited a national conversation about urban apathy, about the coldness of city life, about what modern society had done to human compassion. But psychologists John Darley at Princeton and Bibb Latané at Columbia University looked at that story and asked a different question. Not, what is wrong with those people? But, what situation were those people in? Because Darley and Latané had a theory. They believed that the number of witnesses to an emergency was not just irrelevant to whether someone would help. They believed it was actively working against it. They designed a series of experiments to test this. In one version, a participant sat alone in a room and heard, through an intercom, another person appear to have a seizure. When participants believed they were the only person who could hear the emergency, 85% of them left the room to get help within the first minute. But when participants believed there were other people also listening, help seeking dropped dramatically. When they believed 5 other people were listening, only 31% responded, and many of those who did respond waited significantly longer before acting. The size of the group was actively suppressing the help response. Darley and Latané identified 2 distinct psychological mechanisms driving this suppression. The first they called diffusion of responsibility. When you are the only witness to an emergency, the full weight of that emergency sits on your shoulders. You and you alone must decide what to do. The responsibility is 100% yours. But when there are other witnesses, something fundamental shifts. The responsibility is no longer entirely yours. It belongs to everyone, which means, in a very real cognitive sense, it belongs to no one in particular. Each person in the crowd assumes that someone else is probably already handling it, or will handle it, or is better placed to handle it. The weight of responsibility is divided by the number of people present, and with a large enough crowd, each individual's share becomes so small that it feels nearly weightless. The second mechanism is called pluralistic ignorance. In an ambiguous situation, and most real-world emergencies are genuinely ambiguous, at least in the first few seconds, people look to the people around them to calibrate their response. Is this actually an emergency? Is that person actually in distress? Should I be alarmed right now? But here is the trap. Everyone in the crowd is doing exactly the same thing. Everyone is looking outward at the others, searching for a signal, trying to calibrate. And everyone is seeing what appears to be calm, because everyone else is also suppressing their alarm while they wait for more information. The crowd reads its own collective calm as evidence that the situation is not serious. Each person's suppressed uncertainty is misread by everyone else as confident composure. And so the shared conclusion becomes, this must not be an emergency, because no one around me is treating it like one. The more people present, the more powerful this false signal becomes. The crowd becomes a mirror reflecting a calm that does not actually exist inside any individual member of it. Darley and Latané also found a third factor at work: evaluation, apprehension, the fear of acting inappropriately in front of others. What if you run to help and it turns out the person is fine? What if you misread the situation and overreacted? What if the crowd judges you for causing a scene? What makes this so deeply counterintuitive is that it operates completely below the level of conscious decision-making. You do not sit there and think, I will let someone else handle this because there are many people present. The calculation happens automatically, beneath your awareness, shaping your behavior before you have had a single conscious thought about whether to act. This is what makes the bystander effect so dangerous. It does not feel like a failure of empathy from the inside. It feels like waiting for more information. It feels like reasonableness. It feels like caution. And because everyone in the crowd is experiencing the same reasonable, cautious, information-gathering feeling, nobody moves. Psychologist Philip Zimbardo, who spent his career studying how situations shape behavior, argued that the bystander effect is one of the clearest examples of what he called the Lucifer Effect, the power of situational forces to override individual character. Good people in the right situational configuration will fail to help someone who needs them. Not because they are bad people, because the situation has hijacked the mechanisms that would normally drive them to act. There is a way to break the effect, and it is remarkably simple, even though it requires a specific act of will. If you are ever the person who needs help in a crowd, do not make a general appeal to everyone. A general appeal to everyone is, psychologically, an appeal to no one. It disappears into the diffusion of responsibility and the fog of pluralistic ignorance. Instead, single out one specific person, point directly at them, make eye contact, and say, "You, in the red jacket, I need your help." By naming one person, you eliminate the diffusion of responsibility entirely. The weight of the situation lands on that single individual, undivided. And research shows that when responsibility is made explicit and personal, the help rate jumps dramatically. You also shatter the pluralistic ignorance. The moment you clearly and explicitly label the situation as an emergency, you give every bystander accurate information about what is actually happening, and the false calm of the crowd dissolves. This is why emergency training teaches bystanders to do exactly this, not to shout for help, but to point, name, and make contact. One person, direct communication, clear need. The bystander effect is not a story about human nature being selfish or cold. It is a story about human nature being exquisitely sensitive to social context. So sensitive that the presence of other people can override the most basic impulse to help, not through malice, but through the invisible architecture of group psychology. You are not a bystander because you do not care. You are a bystander because you are a social creature, reading the room, waiting for a signal, in a situation that was never designed to give you one. The next time you are in a crowd and something happens and nobody moves, you will know exactly what is happening, and you will know exactly what to do about it.